Hey guys, how are you doing? This is Zed from Zed Outdoors and I hope you're having an awesome day. So today I am with Nico, the Wispelaere of...
Handgemaakt.
It's easy for you to say.
Yeah.
Nico, how are you doing?
Yeah, doing great, Zed. Thank you so much.
Right, if you're not familiar with Nico, Nico has prepared in a first part of this two-part series. In the previous video, what we filmed with Nico is a detailed process for Nico carving a cooking stroke serving spoon. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Nico, Nico is a very talented maker based in Belgium, more specifically in Bruges. We're currently at the bowl gathering here in the United Kingdom, based in the west of England. And I do want to take a moment out to say thank you to Will Sinclair and Yoav LKM, the organisers of this event and also operating this venue, for allowing us to film here. Now, what it is, this is actually a couple of days before the main event, and we use this opportunity to collaborate with Nico, who's very kindly taken some time out to film these two videos. Now, like I said in the previous video, Nico showed his entire process for carving a cooking stroke serving spoon. Now, in this second video, what we're going to be looking at is Nico's process for Kolrosing. But the difference being is that, and we're going to get onto this conversation a bit in a moment, but Nico is previously trained as a tattoo artist and his Kolrosing work is unbelievable, genuinely some of the best that I have seen. So as we've spoken behind the scenes in the build up to this video, Nico felt, it would be great to show his personal process, how he approaches Kolrosing, but also more so how he actually achieves to really intricate and beautiful designs that's very different to a lot of the Kolrosing you will see being done elsewhere. So a few things to mention before we get on with the actual meat and bones of this video. Number one, a link to the previous video, which I highly recommend you watch, because it's on that very spoon that Nico is going to be demonstrating some Kolrosing. But that particular tutorial will be linked to below. Highly recommend you go check that out if you haven't done so already. Also, what Nico's very kindly done is with this particular video, Nico has provided a few design templates for you to use based on the teachings that he's going to be demonstrating throughout this video, and those are completely free to access. To access that, once again, link will be down below in the description. Highly recommend you go download those and to follow along with what Nico is going to be outlining in this video. Also, as you can see, this is obviously quite a meaty video. Now, what we've done is we've broken this video down into different chapters so it's easier for you to follow. So if you hover along the timestamp of this video, the timeline, you see all the different sections marked out. Also, all the sections are also listed below in the description. On the left hand side you will see all the times, and YouTube has a very cool feature. When you click on that time, it will jump straight to that section. So as you move forward, you can use this video as a training resource, and if there's a very specific section that you want to refer back to, rather than manually scrolling, you can refer to that breakdown of all the timestamps and go straight to that section. Now, what we're going to do first, we're going to look at some examples of Nico's Kolrosing work, and through there we're then going to begin the rest of the process. So Nico, with your kind permission, shall we begin?
Let's get cracking. So
guys, I hope you enjoy the rest of the video where Nico is going to be demonstrating Kolrosing like a tattoo artist. So Nico, I'd like to ask you, and something I'm also curious about, is your background in regards to tattooing and design in general.
Well, yeah, it's quite a long story, but in short, I started off following scholarship in arts. I did that for 6 years, and then for my end work, I think something like that, I made complete work around tattooing. And I studied what was the process of tattooing and so forth, and eventually ended up as an apprentice at the coast with another tattoo artist and got the hang of it. And I started tattooing right away, and I felt, yeah, this is it for me, my creative outlet. And I did that for around 3 years. I tattooed, did different styles, and yeah, that's a bit my journey. And I think, yeah, you have a bit of a resemblance at my spoons right now for the moment. I'm heavily influenced by the tattoo style I'm putting on my spoons.
And something I forgot to mention in this particular video is obviously you're originally from Bruges in Belgium.
Yeah.
So a lot of your experience, was that in Belgium?
So yeah, I started off in Bruges with my school in arts and eventually stayed pretty local. So it was all to do around Bruges, so yeah.
So in terms of the examples we've got here, where would you like to start?
Well, I like to start just with like the traditional Sami style combined with a little bit of funkiness, but I was really inspired by like makers like Jan Harm ter Brugge, like Adam Hawker. Those guys did amazing stuff, like the traditional weaves, like you can see here. They really inspired me, and I tried to wrap my hand around it, and it's really, really meticulously done. It's really meticulously work, and I'm a bit like too wild for it in a sense. So then I started putting in some more like organic stuff, see how that works out, and I was finding it pretty fun to do the organic stuff. And so then I went away a bit from that, and then I went to like the more arty stuff, like playing with lines and the wood structure, playing with the forms, and yeah, also having a bit of an eyeball to Andrea's work. She is also chip carving along with the grain, so that's what I did here. Combine it with a bit of aquarelle, we call it, a bit of watercolor to enhance it more. Also heavily inspired by Sloidar Molly. Yeah, but I kept falling back to like my tattoo history. That was like sketching floral stuff, doing a bit more neo-traditional stuff, and then I started combining like the Sami weaving styles with like more floral styles in a way. I really like the way flowers move on a spoon and they put some dynamic in it, and I tried to research that more because when I saw the spoons on Lydia Latham as well, she started wrapping around stuff, so I really like to play with the back. I was like, yeah, it's the same with like tattooing. You have like a bigger canvas that's not flat, and that's a good part around, like you can wrap stuff around and create an unsuspected side of the spoon, and that really triggered me to go even further. So next to that I started then just getting my designs on the spoon, and then I eventually ended up with this kind of style, more like where I felt comfortable with. So just experimenting first with tools, and then I was starting to put designs on the spoons. Yeah, so playing with that around, also with back check textures on the back. And here you have some seaworthy pirate theme with the knot, and then going over the back, and I really enjoy it because I really have a sense of how the spoon wants to work and how the canvas wants to work with me around it. So keep triggering myself, like also stepping out of frame. I really am searching to put on designs that try to pop out of the spoon. So searching line thicknesses. These are for now really aquamarine themed ones, because I have a friend who's a diver right now, so I made this one for him. Some green man. Yeah, still in the search for how and what, but for the moment I'm sticking with this style. It's pretty fun. Yeah, so first off we need to explain a bit the history and the differences in Kolrosing and chip carving as well. So the most important part we need to know is chip carving is taking out, like this, is taking out some pieces of wood. It's removing material. And with Kolrosing we are adding material. So that's the big difference. We don't want to start chip carving on our spoon. You can combine it in a way, but not today. We're just going to focus on Kolrosing, and what we do with Kolrosing is, instead of cutting a V groove like we do on chip carving, is we just make an incision between the wood fibers and we splice them open, and then we put in our pigment. So yeah, Kolrosing has got a long tradition way back, just the same like chip carving, and is mostly how do you say, mostly connected with people from Scandinavia, upmost north, like the Sami people. But we have evidences around, like in Britannia as well, they used Kolrosing, and even up north in England. So yeah, I think we as humans always had the urge to put signs and drawings on stuff. So yeah, I'm certainly they did it everywhere. So no, but we know the Scandinavian style the most, and this is like this style of basket weave. But yeah, so Kolrosing, that's the thing. And also, before we start, we need to know the word of Kolrosing means writing with coal. That's also one of the pigments we can use. So yeah, when we want to start with Kolrosing, we need to have a look at our canvases in a way. It's the same like with tattooing. You get each time, everybody has its own unique skin, and that's not more different with wood. I will not go completely deep into the different types of wood, but you have different classes, like the ring porous woods, like we know is oak, chestnut. We have diffuse porous woods. We have non-porous woods that are the most resinous one, like pine. So yeah, I like to stay away from like what's the best with the Kolrose in a way, because there is no best wood to Kolrose, but there's also my preferred wood to Kolrose, and that is most of the time diffused porous woods like apple, fruit trees. They are amazing. They take up pigments really good. They are really hard to finish, but that doesn't mean you cannot Kolrose on like chestnut or like oak. It just will take up a lot more pigments because the pores are more open on certain growth rings. So I have here an example, like this is some walnut, and walnut is pretty ring porous as to an opposite of apple. So you can see I have filled up with cinnamon here, and you can see how dark the coloration went. If you can get a really close look, you can see all the little pores are filled with cinnamon, even after sealing it with oil. So they still take up some design. You can have a play with that, that's okay. You can play around and use it as a shading effect or whatever you want. People have told me, and I tried it as well, to cook it in half skimmed milk. But then I found out the wood pores would go stand upright, the wood fibers, and it gets a much more harder wood. So I tend to stay away from the porous woods and try to stick with the diffused porous ones, like apple or pear. That's really amazing. So you see, it almost takes nothing of coloration on. So yeah, you can really get crisp lines. Now the most discussed part amongst Kolroses is which tool to use, and I think for somebody who starts with Kolrosing it can be really confusing, because since of late the market has really been overwhelmed with really nice tools. And the thing is, before I explain these tools, there's no right or wrong. You just need to find out which works the best for you. You can just start off with your Mora knife or just with a regular Sloy knife. Just have a feel with it, have a go, have a play with it. You'll see some things work for other things, and I will try to guide you what my experiences are with this type of tools, what I found best for what. So let's, first off start with the most common one we all know. It's just a Sloy knife. This is the Mora Knife 120, I think. I put some modifications on the bevel. I made it a little more convex in a way. Oh, it's quite dirty, because I wanted it to be like more gentler in opening up my wood fibers. So this is my main Kolrosing knife. But these work really well for your first attempts. If you're using these ones, you can see you're holding this quite on the sharp side. You can, if you're a bit insecure about this, you can wrap it around with just paper tape and just leave a bit of the tip open. I think Andrea did a fantastic job on showing that. I even know of people that use chip carving knives to make some Kolrosing. This is just a sheep's foot and just a regular file knife. Sometimes I use them to make like shadings because they're really fine. I tend to find their bevels are so thinly shaped you cannot get wide enough cut to put in your pigments. But hey, if it's only that what you have, you can have a go with it and try and vibe with it, what works best. And then yeah, we have the Kolrosing knives. These are both made just from drill bits. This one I snatched off Adam Hawker in a workshop, and this is my own prototype in a way. I try to experiment with making an affordable Kolrosing knife. I'm playing with angles, also angles of the steepness of the edge and stuff. So yeah, this is a really good knife for, like, I found this a really good knife for geometrical patterns, weaving patterns, the traditional weaves. They are really nice. Also, you can keep the tip really sharp for some nice shadings. So yeah, really like those ones. Really are a good push knife. We'll explain that later in the video. But yeah, then after seeing a demo of Lydia Latham, I bought one of these ones. This is a small pick knife by Ben Orford. Really great knife. And I think she does all her Kolrosing with that one. It's really amazing. It works good. But yeah, I still keep going to my my Mora knife. But if you have that, have a go. Yeah, definitely. Because yeah, I like to play with different shapes, and I came out of the tattoo business. I could not let go to try out with tattoo needles. So I had a discussion with Carolina Sloyd to start making shading pens, and she just made one with an old tattoo needle. It's like a shading needle it's a group of needles, really thin needles, just put in a nice wooden pen. So yeah, sometimes I shade with it to give like some more depth to it. Works like a treat. But I found out like this is an etching needle, just out of like, I think this one went to school with me. It's just an etching needle, pretty thick, and I use it also for like details, like eyes or like puncturing. Works a treat as well to splitting the fibers.
So your main kind of experience is to play around,
Yeah.
try different knives, try different techniques, and
Yeah.
just seeing kind of what works for you and
Yeah.
what effects you get out of it.
Yeah, but you see, these are all tools you can buy. If you don't have those tools, don't immediately buy those. Just start off with your Mura knife or your regular Sloyd knife and find out what kind of Kolrose you are. If you're into geometric stuff, just ask somebody else if you can lend their Kolrosing knife, or if you're like, this is the best for me, just work with your Mura knife. Yeah. So it's really a process of experimenting. Yeah. So for Kolrosing, the most important part is what we'll use for pigments. And as the word described, we can use regular coal from the bonfire or whatever you have around the house, like from your wood stove. But it's not so pleasant. It's quite smudgy in a way, and it tends to like make everything dirty. So other people started using a lot of coffee, and the thing is, I'm not a coffee drinker, so I need to buy coffee, and that's not beneficial for me. So if you have coffee laying around, try coffee. But my preferred one is cinnamon. Yeah, I really like cinnamon because it comes really fine, and it's really pleasant for the nose, really pleasant to work with. And even if you have, like we talked before, a porous wood, it gets a little bit of a brown stain. It doesn't get that dirty look like as it has with coffee or other ones. So yeah, I also noticed like the cinnamon has the finest powder. I tried to get a Turkish mix of coffee, and that's really fine, really strong, really dark, but it was not yet fine enough for me. So yeah, the thing I do is like a little experiment. I burn my cinnamon so it gets really dark, so you can see the the different colors of the two. So I just take a regular pan, put it above the gas fire, whatever fire you have, and just start burning it really slowly, because you will overheat it and ruin it. But just slowly heat it up, and then it gets really nicely dark of a color, and it tends to stain as dark as coffee. So that's really beneficial. The only downside is like you lose a lot of your lighter powder. So the thing I do is like for the main lines I use my darker stuff, and then for the finer work I use my lighter stuff for the shadings. So yeah, you can go completely crazy with pigments. You can use paprika, you can use iron oxide if you want. You can use everything that's really fine. I think you can even use dried up aquarelle paint. Just have a go. Also, again, just like with the knives, have an experiment with it and try it out. Yeah, each has its preferred style. Some people even use the coffee you can have at hotels, because it's, yeah, easy and it's really also fine. So now we have like been talked a bit through all the stuff we need to start Kolrosing. So let's get our heads wrapped around this. So I like always to start off with a nicely dried spoon that has its last finish cuts, so it's nice and finished and shimmery, everything is nicely closed. And then I start to look at what oil I'm going to use. So mostly I use hard polymerizing oils, so like linseed or like tung oil. Those work really great on spoons for Kolrosing, because they put a little bit of like a subtle layer, subtle varnish when it's really hardened out. But before we start oiling, it's really important to finish the spoon as smooth as we can, because we want a canvas that is ready to tattoo in a way. It needs to be tight, it needs to be really smooth. It can have facets, that's okay, but it needs to be really smooth. So then, before I start oiling and like prepping the spoon for it, we always tend to go back to the burnishing. And like burnishing is just the way to compact the fibers, the wooden fibers. We just compress them with a harder material than the wood, and it makes sure the fibers all align together and you get a really smooth ride over the wood. So everything that is harder and has no sharp edges, it can be used to burnish it. So like you can use a plain river stone, that's perfect, just really smooth, and you can just rub it on your spoon. Or you can even use the back of your knife, of your mura. Just the back spine is really good for like compressing the fibers in a way, so you have like a really shimmering spot over there to start Kolrosing. I had the luck, I have a friend who works at cruises and stuff, and he went to South America and he brought me this magic stuff. It's a tagua nut, it's from a palm tree, and you can find it in Southern America. It's really nice, it's bone hard. They call it natural ivory, and they make the greatest carvings out of it as well. But I really like the way it works for burnishing. It's really smooth. It does not have any sticking to it, so if you use it even to finish up when Kolrosing, the coloration doesn't stick on it, so you always have a nice smooth way. And it has thick round surfaces, smaller edges, so you can get really nicely in those cracks or like in those really tight spots in your bowl, so you can Kolrose the whole spoon. So yeah, I tend to burnish the whole spoon, so it's everywhere. It's nice and sweet, nice and soft, nice and compressed. So if I'm using my pigments, it doesn't get all over my spoon, and it stings in certain spots. So the whole spoon gets a treatment of burnishing. And yeah, after I did the burnishing, I take my time. I do like 10 minutes over one spoon, really burnishing every spot, so I don't miss anything. Yeah, and after I burnished, I use my oil, and today I have with me like my tung oil. I really like it. It's with a little bit of beeswax, so it gives like a little waxy finish.
So just to kind of recap, so you finished carving your spoon or whatever item it is. Yeah. Then what you do, as it's drying, you immediately burnish. Yeah. Okay, to kind of get that smooth finish. Yeah. Once it's burnished and it's all fully dried, then you apply your oil, polymerizing oil. Yeah. And you let that fully cure, is that correct?
Fully cure, yeah. It depends on which oil you're using, because linseed, I think linseed takes like maybe 2 weeks to fully harden out. Tung oil is kind of the same. If you put it in the sun, direct sun, it hardens out really fast. Like in this beautiful weather we're having at the bowl gathering, we can just put it outside and in 3 days it's cured. And I also like to stack a few layers on top, like you do one and then I repeat it a few days behind, and always wipe the excess off. So always apply thin layers of oil, because you don't want the spoon soaking, because you're going to compress it. And if you have the spoon soaking and you will start Kolrosing, the fluids will come up and push out your pigments. Just the same when somebody has drank that much, they come for a tattoo, their blood just oozes out and just pushes out the pigment. And it's the same with the spoon. So that's why I'm not into like oil baths. We just need a really dry spoon. So take your time with it, take your time preparing it, because that's also important to have a nice design.
And so once it's all finished polymerizing, that's basically it.
That's it. You have a ready canvas. Yeah, you can start cracking and start Kolrosing it and thinking about the design. So now we go over to like the fun part. The spoon is prepared, is readily oiled, is cured. So now we can think about our design, how we put it on. I like to think we need to go with the flow of the spoon. So I just made a bigger scale. I upscale it because normally I never pre-draw my stuff. I always tend to sit in the chair, sit comfy, sit between friends or just hanging out while my wife is reading a book. I just like freehanding on the stuff. But I got some basic principles I always use, the same like I build up with tattooing. So I like to work out the flow. So most of the times when I see some lines, or spoons mostly have really delicate lines, even some facets. So I tend to mark it on really lightly with a pencil. And just ever so slightly, just a slight movement that communicates with the lines on the spoon. So I have this line almost communicating with this side. So this goes nice in the curve, and then I will follow back up with the side of the neck. And this gives me like a feeling like how I position it, because I don't want to design this way on a spoon, because that will look bulky and fat. So we want some elegant design. So I will start off with this one in the middle. So I will roughly like put up really lightly with my pencil a shape. I know I'm going to do a lantern, a medieval style or like old style lantern with like a flower around it, so it's really nice and dreamy. So I take up a space on my spoon which it wants to partake in. So I will put here my lantern. I have a big space here I can have communicated a flower with, so I will put the flower here. Just make a nice round. I really break down my forms I am drawing just to rudimentary forms, like the chandelier is like just a rectangle. The flower is just like a bowl with some petals already going out of it. And then I have a look, yeah, how it flows, which one. I think I would just do a rose. So now it's like looking at roses, and yeah, I've drawn many roses in my time as a tattoo artist. So
just one thing while you're doing this, a question I have for you is, you know, when you were doing your tattoo work, how would it typically work? Would people come in with a design that they want that you then replicate, or was it kind of working with you in terms of you having your creative input? How did that typically work?
It worked both ways in a way. It was like sometimes we would just like have a chat with somebody and we talked them through a design, and we sit next to them and we started sketching and try to get what's in their head, and that worked sometimes, and otherwise I had some designs laying ready and people could choose there from what they liked. So yeah, it's just a matter. It also sometimes helped just to talk through with people like, hey, what you think would be cool on my spoon? And people give ideas and you just throw them together and mix them nice up in a big pot, and yeah, you can get really cool designs out of it, yeah.
And so you'd always do the sketch first before?
Yeah, always. Sometimes I did some freehand work as well, like I'm doing now, straight on the client's arm, but that was not too many occasions. Most of the time you just take some time and design it and draw it out and discuss with your client if that's okay. So now I'm doing like a quick sketch of the floral, what we want to look at, and mostly about the position, because now you can see it's looking inwards of the spoon. That's the most important part, because I want everything concentrated in the middle of the spoon, so you need to think about balance. That's really important when designing something like really organic. So now I'm going to like try to get a bit of a glass going on. We can do some little wavy smokes that comes out of the vents of the lantern. So you see, I'm scribbling around, and it's not bad. Like sometimes using an eraser. That's okay if you need to use an eraser. It's not bad. So what also really helps is just Google stuff. We have a lot of amazing people making amazing designs, and if you're stuck in your head like, I don't know what to make, I don't know which style to go, just look some stuff up and just try to copy it and then add your own stuff, your own style to it. Put a small candle inside. So yeah, here I'm gonna choose, because I want some more flow, I'm gonna choose like to have a bit of smoke coming out of this. That runs out of the frame, because I will be framing it as well. Just put a simple border around it, Kolrose it. There's a neat little trick to get a really nice line on your spoon without even using a ruler or something. So yeah, I think that's the design we're gonna try to put up on this one. Just a simple tattoo design, really typical. So now I've been using, like, back again the Wirtestift by Faber-Castell, and that's okay. But for drawing on the spoon, it's really important now to get a little talk about what we're using to draw. So we have a fully cured spoon, nothing left of moisture left or like oily residue. We want a really clean burnished spoon. Like even now, before I start, I will burnish the surface again. So really compress it. So I put quite a lot of pressure on it and go over the surface many times, so it's really nice and shimmery. So it really reflects the light away. Needs to be as smooth as baby skin in a way. So I will just do the same process, except now I will first start off with the outline. So the thing I do is a carpenter's trick, is just put my pencil again against it, and this is a mechanical one because you can sharpen your point, but at the end of my line my point will be thicker on a normal pencil, and our knife is even thinner, even finer than our micro pencil, and I'm using this one, is 0.7 millimeters ones, and it has 2B of graphite. So you get pencils in different classes, in 1B, HB, HF, in different hardnesses. And for designing the Kolrosing, I always recommend people using the 2B, because the 2B is still hard enough to stay on your spoon while you're going over it with your finger, but it's soft enough to erase with our oil by the end of the time. So we start off with gently putting our frame around really lightly. So I use the trick like carpenters do, just mark a line around your spoon. Don't go too close to the edge, because most of the times your edges are really thinned out, so you don't push through them. Just switch up your spoon. It's not a fixed object, just the same like when we carved it. Just gently go around, turn it. Don't get yourself into strange positions. That was what we learned as well, because when tattooing a client, you cannot move the client, but we did. We moved it as much as we could. So yeah, I think I will let it go really nicely, deeply. We'll see where we head out. We can change while Kolrosing as well. So I'll do the same, just copy it. Make a nice flow here. Really lightly scratching almost the surface. And so I will be making the rose a little bit bigger than on the design, because I'm using a knife here. So just the same build up. I made a circle here, and I can start out designing my flower. Just some rough lines. Now I'm still sketching. At the end I will go over them a bit harder with a bit more pressure to get a really nice feel. We've put on our design, so I was sketching right away, and I just went over it a little bit thicker, a little bit harder, with much more pressure on the mechanical pencil, and so you can see the design is roughly on it. So I can start right away right now, but I know not many people or not everybody can just draw freehand like that, and we have some cool assistances to use. So the cool thing is wood is a nice hard transfer, and just like we do tattooing, we're gonna use just like our carbon paper, but this time we use chalk paper. You can also use regular baking paper for it, but if you're not like, oh man, I can't draw, Nico, that's all right. You just print out a cool design you've seen on the internet, and like, I want to see that on the spoon. Just get you some baking paper or some chalk paper, and we can do some really cool magic with it. So what we need for it is chalk paper, baking paper, and a 1B or 2B pencil that has some graphite powder in it. And we just copy the drawing. We just go over the drawing. We just lay it neatly over our design that we printed off. We copy it with nice.
And just to stress, the reason why this drawing is larger is just because of the video.
Yeah, just to show everybody how I build up my designs and how I go about it. Yeah, as you can see, it's much smaller when we work on too. But you can do that on a smaller scale, so it's just clearly for you people, so you can see how I go about it. So we just do it quickly here, just go over it like this, add a few leaves. So when we've done that, you can transfer it like this, but it will be like sideways, so it will not be like what you want. So you need to go over it again with your spoon, with your pencil.
Oh, the other way around.
Yeah, the other way around to copy the texture. And then you will see the magic. I will not do it completely, but you will see what happens underneath it. So that way it will leave some graphite powder on the subject below.
Oh, nice.
So that's how if you put more time in it, you can really have a clear outline of what you want to put out. So yeah, that's a really neat trick. The thing I do is I copy my handle on my spoon. I copy it like this, just trace it. Then you have your handle. Then you put your design on it. Just use your chalk paper, put it underneath. Cut it out with a scissor, use some masking tape, put that on top, stick it on the top of your spoon, and then you can just rub it on with the back of your pencil or even your burnishing stone, and then it will leave out your drawing. So that's maybe a handy tip for people who like, I'm not sure about drawing. It really creates a possibility for you to draw, to put some nice designs on it. So yeah. Before we can start Kolrosing, you see it's not like a paper. It's not flat on the table, it moves around, it bounces around. Here we have a nice, lovely little round tea room table, but most of the time I sit at the corner of a table. So I can have a really nice, tightly workspace where I can put my handle on and can move my spoon around. So most of the time it's balanced like this way. But if you don't have the possibility to do that, and you hate your spoon wiggling around, you can use a tea towel, just a plain tea towel, doesn't matter, even the bath towel, whatever you have, and you just make it a bit fluffy. You put your spoon on it, and it creates a much more stable environment to work on, and you still can turn it, because this will be like the most important thing, to like have it not fixed, move it around, play with it, because with the knife we are limited in our ways. So yeah. I don't like to use the towel because it gets in my way, and yeah, it's a bit too fuzzy for me. So let us make space and then get on cracking with the knife. Like I have told you, I really prefer my Mora knife with a little bit of a convex bevel. It really gives me the how do you say, experience and the outcome of really being free in my movements. I also have a really good sense of where my knife is at, because I can feel right along the cutting edge. And that's the thing with the round Kolrosing knives. It's difficult. You can twist around like crazy, but you never know exactly where your knife is going to end up. And especially in grained woods, sometimes when you trace, you get tracked in some grain. And with this one, I can really feel where my knife is going. So yeah, let's see what's going on. First, I will start with the outline, like I draw it on. We'll make a nice framework I can work around. So I will start just the same like my pencil, but the most important part is we keep it always 90 degrees. Always 90 degrees because we are doing like a really intricate design, organic one. We don't want to move sideways, because otherwise if I make a line next to it the other way, I will start chip carving. So that's the way we don't want it. So we try always to stay 90 degrees on our surface. And what I'm doing here, I'm doing a pull stroke, because I'm mainly a puller. You can do Kolrosing with a pull stroke or with a push cut. So for this big work, I mainly use my dominant hand with just really like nice long pull cuts, really nice for long lines. But like for detailed work, you can turn the knife, have it in the pencil grip up on the handle, and now you're gonna use like the tip of the knife with your tip of your thumb to like move it forward. Some people, I think Lydia does it mainly like that, and you can start Kolrosing really ever so gently, and you can turn the knife really round and round and have really controlled way of Kolrosing. But you will see I do mainly pulling and stabbing. So now I will start with my outline. Really, I put some pressure on it because I really want the fat line to be around. So I want the knife to get penetrated deeper in the wood. So now we're talking about 2 millimeters in the wood. And as I'm coming to an edge, I'm stopping before I reach the corner, because otherwise I will have a thinner line going out. So now I stop, I turn my spoon. So here I'm gonna stop. I push my knife in to make a stop cut there, and now I try to connect them together. So I have a neatly line, runs around and nicely stops. So I will do the same at the other side. Just run in, put some pretty much pressure on it. Stop here because I have a design that's running out. Turn it around. Do a little stab cut like this, and then I have this part finished. Same here when I'm connecting everything. I'm like almost going to the end, stopping, turn around, connecting those two lines like this, so I don't have some, because if I would pull too much and I lose control over this one, I will slide out and get a catch where out of my design. That's the thing I don't want to have. You have a little trick. You can, when you catch outside your spoon, you can with the back of your knife, you can try to rub it close so you don't have that much pigment in it. You will get some pigment in it anyway, but yeah, try to stay out of it as much as possible. So I see my design here goes in, goes outside, so I can regain my line here. So now I'm keeping my piece really steadily on the table and just letting my hand slide nicely upwards. Again, reaching the end, stopping, turning the spoon. Sometimes you see my hands are constantly dancing around. Connecting it here. Here I'm not connecting it because I'm going to go outside of my design and the top a little bit. So now, like now it's really warm weather, my hands are a bit sweaty. Then you need to take heat, like if you're rubbing above your drawing, you will smudge it a bit. With the 2B that's quite okay, you just can put your knife aside, redraw it again and go further on it. So now we did the nice framework around the spoon. So I went along this edge completely with the pull cut. So that is the cut. We just take the knife in the pencil hole and just nicely, gently went along the line and stopped where we needed to stop. So the trick I was explaining is when you tend to like pull through completely into your design, because you have a bellied knife, it will cut slightly into your design. So to prevent that, we stop almost at the end, we turn our knife and we turn our pull direction as well. So we pull then from each corner. So we always tend to go away from each corner. That's really important. So now we did the framework around it, just in a pull cut. And we're gonna work up from downwards, we go up. Because if we would work from the top, I would smudge everything. I would erase it with my own hand. So that's not what it's meant to be. Yeah, so I can almost do everything on here with the pull cut. So I will just first start working on here with the leaves. The leaves are pretty basic. You can just start with the center line of your leaf. That will decide which flow you have. So the same with the pull cut here. I will start off, put my knife in the depth I think, yeah, that's gonna be nice. And as I go along the way, I am turning with my dominant hand, and I'm also slightly putting less pressure on, almost going to the top, and then I'm ending here with slight pressure. So now I went here, put my knife in, much pressure, and as I came out I started releasing much pressure. So I came out here and stopped here. So now I have the build up, I have my main core, my main line created. So now what I'm going to do is, again with a pull cut, ever so slightly, now communicating with my spoon. Now I can easily stop halfway. I'm just like put it in here, started turning in small bits, making tiny straight lines, connecting them to make a really nice curve. And I can just stop mid halfway. The most important part is, let me draw it. When you pull a line, you start pulling it. When you stop it, don't begin here, begin a bit more again in the line so you have a flow, so you can nicely connect it. Otherwise you will have this sometimes. So we try to overlap all lines where we stop. That's the most important thing. So now I did that side. You will feel in your hand sometimes a different side is more difficult. And for a leaf, it's okay to like end up with the knife at the tip because you want it really thin and it may walk out a bit. That's okay. And you can see I just retraced my lines to make it nice and connected. So now we'll switch up again. Make this cut. And as you will approach edges, you need to be really cautious because you can slip out here, and you just really ever so slightly again go in, connect it like this. So we go further. So I really enjoy using the pull cut because in a way it gives me much more control. I heard people talking about like, gives me less control, I don't like it, and they do the push cuts. So I can demonstrate here what other people do. It's like this, the push cut. So therefore the other one is really handy. The Mora knife is, if you do a lot of Kolrosing, it can be really tedious on your thumb. So now, you see I'm not training this one, but you can just gently make your cuts. But you cannot play that much with pressure. You're really controlled in your organic way. So I'm just like pushing along the design here, pushing with my thumb. It's like a bit like a shearing mechanism you do. So when I have really tight curves, I cannot do the pull cut. Like here is a smaller one, a smaller pedal. So the thing I do is stab cuts. That's one Dana Lincia does a lot, I think, on his design. It's like just really tiny stab cuts. It's really handy to make really fat lines as well. Like the leaves, you really want them to come out and pop out, and then you can add some nerves to it and stuff. But most importantly to a stab cut is the tip of a knife. If we have a look at the tip of a knife, it's this. And if you stab cut it, you can easily get this. And this is not a nice line, so most importantly when you stab cut it, you want to overlap each time you go back in your stab cut. So you go, each time you go halfway back, make a stab cut, halfway back, make a stab cut. So each time you retrace it. But it's a really controlled way to make those tight curves, so that's really nice. And I really use that a lot together with the pull cut. Especially nicely to make some nice tight curves. So yeah. That's what we want to have. So now this is on. Just the same for the rest of the design. Just work your way gently upwards. Now I'm doing only the fat lines, because I'm doing this in stages. So I'm just putting up the design first, then fill it in with pigment, and then I go over it with like shading. So now I'm putting almost every time the same type of pressure. And you see, like now I'm taking the spoon to the edge of the table. Like also, like now it's getting pretty darker. So I work a lot with a head torch on my head. It really makes sure I can see each cut I make, and with the light, now you can play around with the light and see where you have been. See, okay, this is down, this is down. I need to go upwards. Yeah, okay. So this is pretty neat. This is also apple wood I'm carving. This one I brought with me from home because I need a cured one. So this has been sunbathing a long time. Here I will again do some little stab cuts and then work it off with a pull cut like this. And I keep communicating with the knife. It's a feeling you need to get just by practicing. So here. And you know this, they're only happy accidents. That's the thing. Everybody makes mistakes sometimes, and it's okay. So here I'm at the middle of the design. Gonna make it nice and curly. Trying to get in it. You see, sometimes you really go into strange positions to just reach your design. And so I'm doing the stab cuts here. It's a repetitive motion. Just the cool thing is, you can have in the beginning you will have jiggly lines, and when we burnish it to close up the pigment in the cuts we made, it will all nicely straighten up. I remember doing like on Spoonfest. I was like with Dan Nalazetzi, or yeah, sorry for the mispronunciation, but he was giving a great class on roses. I remember him doing it. Made really nice roses with him on his class. So you can see my hand is also moving up on my design, so I know I'll be redrawing a bit. Just take caution when you see you're wiping it out a bit, to like get back at it first before it's all gone. So now I'm going to finish off first this rose. Still a little piece here. The cool thing is as well is I can be done now and I see afterwards, oh, I forgot this part. But yeah, you can still go over it. That's the cool thing. You can have a beautiful spoon in your closet that's pretty dry and already oiled. Just take it out of the closet and start Kolrosing it, yeah. So now we've done the rose, this segment, and I see it's a little bit getting messy, it's getting away my drawing, so I just quickly take my mechanical pencil, just try to go over it, make it sharp, so I don't have to think a lot about it. So just run the lines, so you have a note where to carve. So yeah, now it's pretty much on it back. So now I don't need to worry of rubbing it and stuff, so that's okay. So I can have work my way up. I always tend to do like the big lines first. So I do my straight lines in the same direction. It really helps sometimes to stay in the flow. Like do everything in the direction that my knife needs to be first. Yeah, right. Add this on top. Now I do the horizontal ones. You see, it doesn't matter if your knife is like this or like this. The only thing it makes different is the depth of your cut. If I do it really like this, I will have a really wide, deep cut. Like this is a shallower cut with this type of knife. So I want here a little bit of a rounded edge. So again, I will pivot my knife nicely around like that. Yeah, nice. Same here. And you will see, like when we first use the pigment on this one, it will look pretty dull. So then we'll do the magic of like line work. Put in some shading, some thin lines, and connect some lines more, and that really makes it happen. So now I have circles, and the thing is with circles, you really need to take attention of staying up really nice and straight, otherwise you will just pop it out. That's what you don't want to do. You don't want to pop out some wood, otherwise you will need to start chip carving. But that's the thing, you only start chip carving after you've done the Kolrosing. Or you can do it both together. Depends on what end result you want to use. But it's really cool, really nice to see some chip carving and some Kolrosing together. So yeah. Again here the push cuts, really moving my spoon and just going at it with the knife. So you can see here also lightly that I did not connect this part with the round one with the stud. So now I'm going to connect those ones. Put in a thin line here. And that's all that's all design wise, so you can still have a play with it while you're at it. So now we have done like the most outline stuff, like we did the fat lines, the drawing is on it, no need to rush it now anymore. So now to have a first glance at what we incised on this type of wood, I'm gonna put in some pigments. So I tend to use no oil pre-pigments before putting pigment on, because sometimes like compressing the fibers, it pushes out the pigment together with the oil. So I want to pack in my pigments, so I'm going to use this cinnamon, the black one, the one I burned. I will put that one first on my spoon, and the thing I do is just plainly take a really generous coverage of the pigment and really like rub it in with the tip of my finger. Really like go hard in it, really try to push it in those little incisions I made to pack it. So try to get it everywhere I want it to be. So you can see starting to get a little sense of what I put on. So like this. Before I start burnishing, I will take a nice, just a regular cloth and wipe it open. Like this. So as you have seen, it took up a little bit of pigment. So we'll try to reduce that with now oiling. But first, before we oil, we'll remove a bit of this pigment out of the way. Yeah, make sure you have no clean spoons or unoiled spoons around you when you're doing this, because you don't want it all messy. So that's why, hence the cloth, to like clean up the table a bit, clean up your spoon. So now I'm going to use just a drop. This is my tung oil I have, just like a drop on the thumb. Put it on there. So now it's going to soak into those edges. Now I'm going to pack it with the burnishing stone. Put some nice pressure on it. So you can see the wood has taken up some pigments, but that's okay, I'm fine with that. The lines are popping out really nicely. Like that, yeah. So now this is what we will have to work with. So now what I want to do is like add some depth, and that we can create by adding thin lines. So now we need a really sharp tool, and this one is not that sharp like I want it to be. So now I'm going to go back to this Kolrosing knife. Really sharp tip, and I want to try to add some shadings. And the thing is, it's not like with a pencil, you just cannot color it, so you need to use like different types of shadings. So what you can do, we'll show a few examples of how to do some nice shading. So if you have like different petals on top of them like this is pretty flat. So what you want to do now is like make little incisions really slightly. So it's with line work you will have to do. So just some subtle, really subtle scratches. The thing is, you see here I have mixed up my light, so if I want it to be correct, should do it like this. My light source is coming from my right hand side, so it will create a shade on here and on here. So you can do just like this, or you can cross hatch as well to make it even darker. And the cool thing is, if you want to play with shades, like this is darker, and this is like, if you put many nice thin cuts next to each other, you get a really dark space, and you can open it up like this. You can do the same with just like the tip of your knife. Show with the Sharpie as well. With the tip of your knife you can go make it really darker and go ever so slightly lighter to create a shading pattern. So those are the options. You can cross hatch or just make some nice scratches, or just use the etching tool. So we have a combination of the two. So what I'm going to do, let's take our drawing back. What I want to do is like get some depth on the leaf. So like what I did here, I want to do some suggestions of how the leaf turns and folds over, and also some subtle suggestions in the metal work, so it gets a bit more depth. So that's what I'm going to do now. Start from the top now to the bottom, because that's more easier for me to work now. So I have here a ball on top, so I want to have like a bit of a shimmering in top. Just gonna make slight suggestions, so really thin scratches on here. I'm just going in like 1/2 mil, not too deep. It's not the same. Just don't need to be so deep anymore. Just some salt. That's really now personal preference. How you do it, if you do it, if you don't do it. If you're like, hey Nico, I really like this, it's good enough for me, that's okay for me. It's just what you like. So also you can use it just like dots. You can make little triangles with your knife that suggest there's a line there. So remember, each scratch you are making will take up some pigment. So it's really important you keep memorizing that. You're just not like scribbling around now. needs to make sense in a way. So I see I forgot a piece here. Forgot a piece of the bottom. So that's a cool thing about Kolrosing, you just can add it. If you do too much, that's a different thing. You cannot take any pigment out anymore. You just have to go with the flow. So yeah, for the little bit subtle, you see, like with this tool now, I can really turn, let it ride the wood, and just use it like a normal pencil. You'll see that will make a difference for all the lighting and stuff. And just take your time to like fill it in and say, oh yeah, look in the light, have a little bit of the shimmering so you can see what's happening. Like the thing is, like with traditional weaves, and that's a cool thing, with traditional weaves you can play, so you can have each line you need to pull or need to incise on your wood can make it diagonally across the grain, so you never have a catch. With organic designs it's a little bit more difficult. Sometimes you need to go with the grain, against the grain, so it's really important to use sharp tools to, like, how do you say, avoid getting a catch you don't want.
So when you're doing the tattooing, is it a little bit of a similar process? Or?
Yeah, actually it is. The only difference is that you have a needle that's going up and down, and you have a bigger machine. These days they have like really small rotary machines, but in my days they were the big coil machines, and with the needle going up at like, what is 20,000 per second or something, or per minute. Yeah, it's a bit the same. We just make an incision, we make a wound, and here we're doing the same. We make an incision, we make a wound to the wood where we can get our pigment in, and it's just the same principle. Well, I had a little experiment using a tattoo machine to Kolrose, and it worked pretty nice, pretty impressed by it. But yeah, I like the manual labor. So now it's all, you can if you're doubting a bit, you can just fill it up again and see how it works out for you, and if you like it, you can add up layers. I always strongly believed everybody could draw, so that's the thing, it's just taking some practice what you're doing. Trust the process. So now I'm putting some veins on the leaf to make them like a little bit more leafy like. So like I told you, there's like a lot of examples of different styles of leaves to draw and to design. Take a look at nature. Just, that's a cool thing, we're surrounded by beautiful nature, so take a leaf that inspires you and copy it on your spoon, and then you'll get a long way. Yeah, we'll just put in some background designs as well. Some crosses, some star-like shapes. So now I just use like the point of my knife to make a nice triangle indentation. So I have like a cross form. That's a thing they used to do a lot in Sammy styles. And underneath here I will just do some dots with the etching needle, and then we can have a go with our finer pigment. So just the same principle, just like not cutting anything out, just like indenting. Because I've seen like the wood has taken up some pigment, I'm going to have a play with that and try to fill up the background a bit more subtle so the front can pop more. And for this we're going to use the finer cinnamon powder, the one that's not been cooked in a way, not been burned. It was actually pretty cool because I was in a Kolrosing class together with Harold, and we were discussing about getting our pigments really dark. And it was actually Harold that told me, like, yeah, Nico, just burn it with a lighter. We were burning cinnamon like crazies with a lighter, so yeah. So now, this is the thicker powder I use for the main lines, the darker one. And now I'm gonna use just the regular thinner one you can get in the convenience store. Just the same, I like to, oh, that's maybe a bit, yeah, but anyways, we need a lot of cinnamon right now. Again, the same process, no oil before, just push it in, pack it in really nicely. And you can see already what I've done, what I've been doing. I see something here, so I tend to go back while I'm at it. I just like, don't want to take all the hassle again from cleaning it up, so in between I just go over it and cross hatch it again. Put that safely away and then go over it again. So that will be covered as well. Take the burnishing stone like this. Wipe the excess off. Don't be too expensive on my cinnamon. Yeah, it's quite messy sometimes, but smells nice. So pack it in really tightly. Now the magic part. Just a bit of oil, not too much. Don't want to over exaggerate. And the cool thing is the lighter color is really subtle, but it darkens a bit over time. So yeah, this is a bit what we're at. So we burnished it, we oil it now, and now we just need to let it rest for a while and let it cure. If you have some, after a few days, if you have some, we'll add this or that, you can just add it, so that's perfectly okay.
So there you have it, my friends, and that is a wrap for this video. Nico, thank you so much.
Yeah, it was my pleasure again. So
the pleasure was all mine. This is actually the first time I've seen the entirety of Nico's process for Kolrosing, so it was equally fascinating for me, as hopefully it was for you. A couple of things to bear in mind. This is something I did also mention in the part 1 of this 2-part series, is that English is not Nico's native tongue, right? So it's always very difficult if a language is not your native tongue, not only just to speak in that, but to explain things and on video when there's a big camera in your face and me behind it, right? So it's very, very difficult, but I think Nico done fantastically well in explaining everything. And also, would I be right in saying this is the first time you've also talked about your process on video?
Yeah, it's the first timer for me, from the carving on the spoon to the Kolrosing today. So yeah, it was complete newbie.
And so this is the first time, right? So it's always very difficult we do a lot of work behind the scenes, you know, to make sure we explain everything and everything's methodical and it flows. And if you've got any familiarity with my channel, you know I'm a little bit OCD, right? With things being in order, and it kind of just makes sense, right? So, you know, Nico's, even as we were building up to filming this video, his intention was just to make sure that he gets the information across and that you guys get it. And obviously this video is now an ongoing resource for you to kind of consume moving forward. A few things to recap on, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video and just a moment ago, part 2 of a 2-part series. In part 1, we looked at Nico's entire process for carving this particular style of spoon. And obviously in this part 2 is obviously the Kolrosing, based on the inspiration he got from training up as a tattoo artist. Now, another thing to recap on, as we mentioned at the very beginning, is that obviously this video is entirely time-stamped into all the different sections. So as you move forward, you can now jump to specific sections that you're working on, because the encouragement with this video is hopefully to inspire you, whether you're a complete beginner, intermediate, or even at an advanced level with spoon carving and Kolrosing, etc. Hopefully you've got something to take away and to incorporate and play around with yourself. Because the key thing, what Nico has done in this video, is to give you an insight into his process and how he does certain things and how he thinks about things. So the idea is these are like tools in your toolkit that you can go away, experiment with, and make it your own. Would I be right in saying?
Yeah, just hit the spot with that one. Yeah, that's my intent. Yeah.
Because Nico's not saying this is the only way you do it.
No.
This is what he's developed, and he's continuing to develop and kind of prototype and play around with it and experiment. But the idea is he's giving you little tips and techniques all throughout, even from the tools that you use, the actual powder itself, etc. And the idea is, as with all of these teachings, is to kind of put more tools in your toolbox, so when you go away and do things, you've got more things to play around with, test out, etc. And the idea is obviously you take what works for you and expand upon it yourself. Now, just as we were filming this last section, we spoke off camera. Now, I mentioned at the very beginning that Nico has kindly created some downloadable designs that you can go away, access for free. Link will be below in the description and pinned to the top of the comments. And the idea is you can download those and obviously, you know, replicate those on your spoons or whatever it is that you're carving. But we've actually taken it a little bit step further, as we were speaking off camera, because Nico's really sincere about wanting to help you as much as he can. So what he's actually going to do on that page now is going to expand upon that and put a lot more resources to do with Kolrosing. He's going to talk specifically about the knives, write them down, list them out, potentially where you can even maybe get those. And also he's going to do an outline of the process, and he's going to be adding to that as we move forward. So regardless of when you're watching this video, do check back on that resource frequently, because Nico will be adding to that. Also, if you follow him on his Instagram, which I highly recommend you do. And on that note, I will say, if you gain any value from this video whatsoever, it means the world to me. You check out his resource on his website, but also give him a follow on Instagram. And also Instagram is the best way of keeping up to date of additions to that resource page. So Nico will update you guys on Instagram to let you know, hey, I've just added this to the resource page, because he wants to make it a one-stop shop for all things Kolrosing related. So as he's learning, he can share everything with you. So like I said, Nico, I really do appreciate you taking the time to show this. It's really helped me out filming this, as well as hopefully for the guys that are watching. As I mentioned, links to everything down below, the timestamps, the link to the resource on Nico's website to do with Kolrosing, as well as the previous video that we finished. And just before we actually do wrap up, 2 quick things I want to touch on is, you actually teach this, don't you, in person?
Yeah.
So in terms of people wanting to find out, so would I be right in Belgium specifically that you run workshops there?
Yeah, yeah.
And will that be information also be available on your website?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, we'll drop dates when I have some workshops going on. And also, if you're in the country, like from abroad, and you want to meet up with me, just give a phone, contact me through Instagram, and we'll set something up so I can get on carving together, or I can teach you how to Kolrose. So
yeah, because we talked about in the previous video, but he does also teach spoon carving, but also the Kolrosing side of things. So just kind of recap, if you are based in Belgium or surrounding areas like the Netherlands, etc., then obviously you can get in touch with Nico, go down, visit him. He also does teach in those countries as well, like the Netherlands and elsewhere. And also he does obviously visit outside of Belgium. So like I said, he's here at the moment inside the United Kingdom. So following on his website as well as his Instagram, you can be kept up to date of where Nico's travels are taking him. But you can be rest assured that he has got a setup in Belgium, in Bruges specifically, that you can go visit him in person, either as an individual or in groups, and you can learn from the man himself. As I always say in these videos are a fantastic resource. However, nothing beats in-person learning. It's a completely different dimension. So if you have the ability to learn from Nico in person and people like him, I always encourage people to take that opportunity up. So once again, Nico, I really do appreciate you taking the time. It's been an absolute honor for me to sit here, to document your entire process, to put Belgium on the map as well. I said the Belgians are taking over my channel now. So it's also great to kind of like showcase across people from from obviously outside the UK. And like I said, it's been a great spending this day with you, filming here at the Bulb Gathering. And once again, a thank you to the organisers of the Bulb Gathering for allowing us to film in this particular location. So links to everything down below, and I really do hope you enjoyed this video. And like I said, if you get any value from this video whatsoever, all I ask from the bottom of my heart is just go check out Nico's Instagram and give him a follow. So on that note, I hope whatever you're doing, you have a blessed day, a blessed week ahead. From Nico and myself, Zed Outdoors, peace out.